Hi, sixth graders. We're on lesson 2-4, which starts on page 95 in your textbook. Our learning target is adding integers. So remember to label the top of your sheet of paper with lesson 2-4, the date, and the learning target. So it's easy for you to come back to. All right, so looking at a number line, and if we are, so remember integers are positive or negative or zero numbers, okay? So using the number line that we used previously, we are going to add integers. So if we are adding two negative numbers, so they have the same sign, so -3 plus -2, well, if we start at 0, okay, and we have -3. So first we want to get to -3. So we go 1, 2, 3. Okay, remember going left is negative. And then we're going to go 2 more because we're adding -2. So 1, 2. So then our answer is going to be -5. Okay? If we have -2 plus -5, we start at 0. We get to -2. And then we're going to add -5. So adding -5 means that we go to the left. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we did 7 jumps total, all negative, so we end up with -7. And then if we have -1 plus -3, start at 0, then get to -1, and then 1, 2, 3, we get to -4. So we can kind of look for a pattern here, and in my next slide, which you're going to write down, has kind of a theorem about adding integers with the same signs. If you look at this, if you take the absolute value of -2 and you add it to the absolute value of -5, you would get, because the absolute value of -2 is 2, absolute value of -5 is 5, you would get 7. Okay, which we can see even though our answer is -7, you get 7. Here, if we take the absolute value of -1 and we add it to the absolute value of -3, we have 1 plus 3, so we would get 4. Okay, even though they're not similar, but we can see that we have the same numbers, just different signs. So, for sure, write this down. Adding integers with the same sign. You want to write it a little bit bolder, circle it, highlight it, underline it, whatever. Okay? So what we're going to do, which we just did right in the previous slide, is we add their absolute values. If both integers are negative, the answer is negative. Oh, if both answers are positive, the answer is negative. So if we have -3 plus -2, we want to take the absolute value of both the numbers. Okay, I would write these examples down. So the absolute value of -3 is 3. The absolute value of -2, that looks like the worst absolute value of -2 ever. And we get 5. Then it says if both integers are negative, the answer is negative. This is negative, this is negative, so that means we have to make that negative. Okay, absolute value of -4 plus the absolute value of -8. We're doing it this way because we have -4 and -8, same signs. So 4 plus 8 equals 12. Both integers are negative, so we make it negative. Negative 20 plus 25. Sorry, plus negative 25. So the absolute value of negative 20 is 20. The absolute value of negative 25 is 25. 20 plus 25 equals 45 because it's a negative and we're adding more negatives, so we're going more to the left. It's negative 45. So another thing that you can write down is a negative plus a negative is always negative. Positive plus positive equals positive. Okay? So negative plus a negative equals negative. Positive plus positive equals positive. Okay? So what happens when we're adding two integers with different signs? So we're going to go back to our number line. So say we're adding 2 plus negative 5. We're still going to start at 0. This time we're going to move 2 units to the right to represent 2. So 1, 2. Now we're going to move 3, oops, not 3. We want to move 5 units to the left. Duh. So I'm at 2, and then I'm going to go 5 units to the left because it's negative 5. So we're at 2, and now we're going to add, or we're going to go to the left 5. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And our answer then is negative 3. Okay, if we have 3 plus negative 2, so we start at 0. We go all the way up to 3. Now we have plus negative 2. So adding a negative, we go to the left. So 1, 2, the answer would be 1. And then 1 plus negative 7. So 0, then we go to 1, and then we go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and we end up at negative 6. Okay, so we can kind of see a pattern starting to form here. We know that if we just take the absolute value of the one number, 5 minus 2 equals 3. 3 minus 2 equals 1. 7 minus 1 equals 6. So the definition for adding integers with different signs, okay, this is super, super important. So write this down. Write down the directions. You're going to subtract the absolute values of both integers and then take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So if we have negative 9 and 4, if we take the absolute value of negative 9 and the absolute value of 4 and we subtract them, we have absolute value of negative 9 minus absolute value of 4. So 9 minus 4 equals 5. Now we take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. So this one, okay, we go back to our original equation. Negative 9 has a greater absolute value, so that means we're going to take that sign, which is negative, and make it negative. Okay, this one is a little bit trickier. So let's do a couple more. Negative 8 plus 3, we're going to subtract the absolute values of both integers. So absolute value of negative 8 minus absolute value of 3. So we have 8 minus 3 equals, and we'll put this up here, 5. And then we take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. 8 is greater than 3, and that's a higher absolute value. So because 8 is negative, we're going to make it negative 5. Okay, negative 13 plus 18. Okay, we're going to subtract 18 minus 13 equals 15. Oops. Okay, so I'm going to write 15 up here. Now, we are going to take the sign of the integer with the greater absolute value. 18 has greater absolute value and it's positive, so then we just leave this positive. Okay, absolute value of 7 plus absolute value, so really it's 7 plus negative 1. Sorry, I don't mean to be confusing you. Our first step is to take the absolute value of both numbers and subtract them. So absolute value of 7 is 7, absolute value of negative 1 is 1, so our answer is 6. Take the integer, or the sign from the integer that has the greatest absolute value, which would be 7, so our answer then is positive 6. Try 5 plus negative 9 on your own and check back when you're done. So 9 minus 5 is 4, and then 9 has a greater absolute value than 5, and it has the sign, so it would be negative 4. When you're doing problems like this, make sure when you find the answer that you stop and make sure that it makes sense. Okay? There's no way if I had 5 and I take away, I add negative 9, basically, there's no way for me to all of a sudden be at 200 or something like that. So you always need to make sure your answer makes sense. Or if you have two negatives and you end up with a positive, when you're adding, then you may have done a computation error. Okay. Last thing. My computer is being really weird. So additive inverses and opposites are two integers that are the same distance from 0. So basically, negative 5 and 5, because they're opposites. So it's the opposite, but they're the exact same way from 0 on a number line. Negative 11 and 11, and negative 1 and 1. So the additive inverse property states that the sum of any number and its additive inverse is 0. Okay? We have 5 plus negative 5. If we start at step 1 and skip 0 and instead look at, or skip starting at the number line, and let's look at our instructions for adding integers with different signs. Okay, so our first step is to subtract absolute values of both of the integers. So we know that negative 5 and 5, the absolute value of 5 is 5, and the absolute value of negative 5 is 5. So we have 5 minus 5, and we get 0. My pen is being so funky right now. I don't know what's going on. But there we go. So 5 minus 5 is 0. And remember, 0 is neither positive or negative. Okay, so make sure you log into NICU and take your lesson 2-4 NICU quiz. This may be one that is a confusing lesson and you may want to look back on, or you may want to write some notes into your notebook underneath the problems and examples that you did. Okay, have a wonderful evening and we'll see you tomorrow.